All right. Yeah, so I'll just wait a couple more people to come in, and then we'll get started.
Perfect.
Yeah, just let my people know that we on. Let's see. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna play a theme song for you.
Okay.
We'll think about my theme song. I love my theme song. Let me pull it up real quick. Let's see. Forgot to have it ready. Let's see. Yeah, one of my friends cooked this up for me. Like one of his friends, like a couple months ago. It was, and I didn't ask him to do it, but I appreciate it for him that he did it.
Sure, that sounds great. I can't wait to hear it myself now.
Let's see, it's gonna cooperate. Let's see.
She told me just to do the logo, music, and theme song too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's it right here. He did like a couple months ago. I love it.
I like it.
We got 180 people so far. What's up, people? 198. I love it. Oh yeah. It's like a minute long, so yeah. But I'm not gonna play the whole thing. I'm gonna get started. Yeah, just wanted to show you real quick. All right. What's going on, people? Sweaters, how y'all doing? Welcome back to another episode of Will Call. Tonight I have a very, very special guest. He's one of my favorite YouTubers. If you love Chicago sports, very dedicated guy in the sports world, sports media world. Zaghloul, he's Sports Talk Chicago. So if you want Chicago Bears talk, Bulls, White Sox, just Cubs, he's the man to go to. You know, he's one of my favorite YouTubers, and I'm humbled and honored that he's here with us. Spend some time out of his Saturday just to spend some time with us. So I want to give you a round of applause from YouTube real quick, brother, because you deserve all the flowers. You deserve all your flowers, brother. Let me get you squared away. There you go.
I love it, It's great to be here.
Yeah.
We connected over YouTube a while ago. You're always commenting, which I love.
Right.
I'm looking forward to our talk tonight. Lots of Chicago stuff, lots of national sports stuff, and it's going to be fun for sure. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, like I can't thank you enough. I just I forgot how I just was looking up Chicago sports a couple years back. I'm not a fan, but just I love NFL football. So just really seeing how the fan interacts with Chicago teams. Just I have a great respect for the franchise. Just what their legacy. They have a great legacy, particularly on defense, of course. Outside of the running backs, there's not really the same offensively, but just what they've done on the defensive side is just so unbelievable. Each generation had, and when you look at the resumes, each generation had a Hall of Fame iconic linebacker. First, it was Bill George in the 40s, Dick Butkus in the 60s, of course, Mike Singletary, the icon in the 80s. When I was coming up, it was Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs, and then you go to Khalil Mack. It's uncanny how they've really dominated that position, especially defense all around, but especially in the front seven. Of course, with the Bear defense, it's just why in the world can they just cannot get together offensively? Even when the defense is down, like you look at the stats, like their ranks in total defense, ranks in and scoring defense. Even when they have a down year or average year for their standards, they were at least better than offense in those years. Outside of the Mark Trestman era, which is very short-lived, that's like historically great for them offensively, but they just couldn't have it. And it always begs me to question, they've wasted so many great defensive players. Like outside of like Walter Payton and your Gale Sayers and Matt Fortes and stuff, even Thomas Jones, Red Grange early back in the day, not Red Grange, Bronco Nagurski, excuse me. Just when you consider like outside of the running backs, they just have not much to celebrate offensively, and it's crazy to me because when I looked it up a year ago, the franchise's all-time leader, and look, we already got one, Blaine McNaghy. Hey, I already got a cut. Appreciate you, brother Kool-Aid. Bears are a good organization. We're going to get to that shortly, brother. Trust me. Look, that's why I got this guy on right here, because he going to educate all of us. We're gonna get to that shortly. So, but just when you consider that, they just haven't been able to replicate the franchise's all-time leader receiver, Johnny Morris, has 5,000 yards. That's that. Like in 100+ seasons, as iconic as that franchise is, you have the Houston Texans who started playing football in 2002. They have two receivers, Andre Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins, have well over 9,000 yards apiece, and they barely played 20 years. But that goes to show you the lack of offense, and that obviously a lot has to do with the quarterback play outside of Sig Luckman. They just haven't had enough. Jim McMahon had a iconic defense. To his credit, he did what he was supposed to do, but he had Walter Payton and the iconic defensive course. Jay Cutler had his moments, but you got to explain this to me. Like you know better than all of us. I just can't see to understand what's missing from that side of the ball.
I think the Bears have always had an identity crisis. I mean, they've always emphasized the defense. And you got to remember this, too. Same owners for 103 years, same family. Yeah, they sometimes treat this team like it's still the 1940s in the NFL, and you can't win that way anymore. This is not about, forcing 5 interceptions, throwing for 100 yards a game, and winning 12 games in a Super Bowl or NFL championship back in those days. You can't do that anymore, which is why I give them credit in getting Justin Fields and trying to turn things around offensively. And I would argue today, this season, is one of the first years in recent memory in which this Bears team is mainly an offensive team more than a defensive team. But that said, for the majority, if not all of their existence, they've just been a defensive team. They don't understand the value of a good quarterback, prioritizing wide receivers, even prioritizing running back. I mean, they've had many over the years, but it still could be better than some of these other teams that they've had. I mean, the Bears have had Walter Payton, but other eras and other years in general, they haven't had the best run game either. So I think it's just a combination of the Bears are all about a defensive identity. That's what they've known. That's what they've prided themselves on for the past 103 years. And, well, that's nice, and it won you a Super Bowl. Keyword won in 1985. They haven't won many more. They haven't won anything. They've been very unsuccessful, and I think it's time for them. And they've started to realize now that you need to adapt to the NFL in 2022, not adapt to the NFL or play football like it's 1945. And that's been their biggest issue over the years. I think now they're starting to adapt, but it's very confusing, Will. It's very confusing because, there have been years in which the Bears have drafted high quarterbacks who've been busts, right? Like Cade McDowell, one, Rex Grossman, Kyle Orton. They traded for quarterbacks like Jay Cutler. I mean, that was a blockbuster trade at the time, and that didn't really pan out either. They drafted Mitch Trubisky, which, as polarizing a figure as he is, I like Mitch Trubisky. I just thought that Matt Nagy certainly ruined him. Now they got Justin Fields, who seems to be very, very good, as long as he could stay healthy and the Bears could build around it for next year. So, I mean, it's a long-winded answer, but I think it's just the fact that the Bears never wanted to emphasize quarterbacking. They never wanted to emphasize offense throughout their entire existence. They're starting to change that around right now, but in my opinion, it's a little bit too little too late. They should have done this a long time ago. They could have drafted a good quarterback in the 80s, in the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and they could be further along as a franchise. But they have stuck to this mentality of we are going to win games defensively. We're going to play like it's 1945 and win football games. And in 2022, unfortunately, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, and I will say, and what you said, this is something I've always thought about because, they just deserve better. The franchise is too historic. For them to be, it's one thing if it's an expansion team, but 100+ years and you still have a receiver that had over 5,000 yards, but it goes back to the quarterback play, the lack of attention. Now I will say, I will give credit though it's very early. I will give credit to the new regime with Poles and Eberflus. They actually seem like they want to make Justin Fields an offense to focus. You finally see him. Even though it's his second year, you finally see him going to his strengths. Because Matt Nagy, like you said, we talked about ruin. I have you on watch later. I get all your updates, and I can't wait till win, lose, or draw. Listen, because I know you're gonna shoot it to us straight. So I know you don't cheat us. So and I was always eager, not for the fact that you guys lost or won, but just I knew that it was gonna be consistent. And it goes to show you when you actually cater to your quarterback, which is the most important position in team sports, you have to have guys around him. So they do in one step right. So just tailoring to his strengths. So I pulled it up. I just want to make sure. So he's obviously on track for a 1,000 season already. So he has 13 passing touchdowns, 8 interceptions in his starts so far. No, last year he had in 10 starts he had 7 pass TDs and 10 picks. Rookie year, he started late, so I'm not holding a rookie year against you at all. And this year he has 834 rushing yards and 7 scores. He actually leads the league in 6.8 yards per carry. Now, granted, I understand that's a quarterback, and they don't get all the touches as a rusher does, but that's still impressive. 7 yards a pop is really impressive, regardless of the position. So, but just and I saw a video that you made this week. You said you were grateful for Justin. Just would you care to elaborate for the people, just how specifically you're grateful? Because I'm grateful for him too, because they deserve a great quarterback. So,
right. But I'm grateful too because I think, and this is what I said in my video this week, he masks a lot of these Bears' problems and deficiencies. This team is not ready to win now, and everybody knows that. This is a rebuilding year. Ryan Poles said it, and Eberflus said it, media, and said it, I've said it. I mean, look at this roster. Let's be honest here, Will. These are a bunch of scrubs. I mean, a lot of these guys are going to be on this team next year. The majority of them are not going to be here, whether it be because of poor performance, whether it be because of one-year contracts, whether it be they're just they're not household names, and the Bears have more money next year to spend. $120+ billion in cap space, as we talk here today, could even be more at the end of the season. So I appreciate Justin and what he's done, because this Bears team would be a lot worse than they are. I know they're not the best team ever, and I know they've lost already a lot of games, but they've been in the majority of these games that they've played with Justin Fields because of him, because of running for 178 yards and breaking a record, right? Because of throwing touchdowns when they need it, because of running and extending drives, extending plays, extending third down conversions, turning them into first downs and moving the chains, because he's able to move and he's a mobile quarterback. This offensive line is horrible. And Justin still is near the top of the league in sacks. I think it'd be way worse if he wasn't a mobile quarterback and he'd be getting sacked 10 times more. So there are just so many things that I appreciate what he does, because this Bears team without Justin Fields would literally be a train wreck. This could be reminiscent of the 0-16 Detroit Lions back in 2008. Really, and I say that because, again, Trevor Siemian played last week, right?
Yeah.
Trevor Siemian got beat up. He had no time to throw the football. He's not a mobile quarterback. This Bears team's already out without Khalil Herbert. He might be out for the rest of this season.
Yeah, you said that.
Darnell Mooney is hurt. Eddie Jackson is hurt. They're both on IR now. That's scary. So there are no more weapons offensively for this team. The defense is already depleted. They traded away Khalil Mack before the season. They traded away Robert Quinn and Roquan Smith mid-season. Yeah. So what do the Bears really have to offer besides Justin Fields? He is the main reason why they're even halfway competitive. And I think once the Bears decide to invest money in him, build a team around him, draft players that are going to help him and help out this team for next year, I think they could easily be a wild card team. I could totally see them going 9-8, 10-7, maybe even 11-6 next year, and contending for that last wild card spot in the NFC. And I think that'd be a huge success considering where they are right now. So I appreciate Justin for what he's done. I appreciate the fact that because of him, this Bears team isn't unwatchable. Because if he wasn't there, I don't know if I'd be watching the game. Absolutely. So, he has done a really good job of just keeping them in games, keeping them competitive, and making them nationally recognized. I mean, everybody's talking about Justin Fields and this Bears team, and they don't have much to offer. That's a big credit to him more than anything. Yeah.
And I will say, we got some comments from Top Shotter and Kool-Aid. Look, they love you already, brother. I'm not surprised. Kool-Aid been saying just they struggle until they play to a strength. Like I've said offline before. You look at what the Jacksonville Jaguars have done with Trevor Lawrence. They got a college teammate in Travis Etienne. You look at what the Cincinnati Bengals done with Joe Burrow. They got his college teammate who he broke records with at LSU, Jamar Chase. You get people that he's comfortable with. Your quarterback is the greatest priority, is your prized possession. And a Top Shot, they said thanks to the previous regimes, they have a Sandlots squad, not even a respectable squad because of underwhelming ownership, previous squads. And Kool-Aid said again, you traded away Allen Robinson. To me, he was so underrated, underappreciated because and I always look at Allen I'll say this first. The two things that, in my opinion, largely dictate an athlete's legacy, that's health and situation. And so when you look at Allen Robinson, drafted to the Jaguars, even though he was a Pro Bowl in 2015, Not a great quarterback situation. Same thing with Chicago. Now I know it's life altering generational wealth, so I can't blame an athlete for getting a bag, but it's like when you think about your legacy as a player, it's unfortunate. I know like you can't tell the future, you can't tell what's gonna happen before you get in a situation, but I just would have loved to see him play in like a more offensively friendly, that are just directed towards vertical offenses. But that's one of the many players you said. Roquan. I was shocked about Roquan. I mean, I'm not in the locker room. I know you cover the team more closely. I was shocked by that because like he's a one of your stalwarts defensively. Likewise for Robert Quinn. But it's
yeah. Oh, I got so much to tell you about this. So let's go with the Allen Robinson thing first. Yeah. But I think he was unfairly treated by the Bears and media, especially last season. Playing through an injury, you got 3 different quarterbacks starting games: Nick Foles, Andy Dalton, and Justin Fields. How the hell are you expected to actually do well when you have all 3 of those guys playing for you? I mean, Nick Foles is essentially out of football right now. Andy Dalton somehow is deserving to start in New Orleans. I mean, that's a train wreck over there. And then Justin Fields had no protection and nothing, and Matt Nagy was sabotaging him, just like he sabotaged Mitch Trubisky. So how can you judge Allen Robinson rightly or not, based on last season's situation? I was disappointed in the way he was treated. I was disappointed in the way that he left. I've had talks with his agent personally. We follow each other on Twitter, and I've been really trying to get him on. I'm still trying to get him on my program. But the whole thing with Robinson is I just don't think he was treated fairly here. And I think, as you said correctly, situation matters. He's always been in a crappy situation, and yet he's put up great numbers.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yard seasons. I mean, for the situations and the cards that he's been dealt, I think he's done an outstanding job, considering. Now, as far as Roquan Smith goes, this all started for him before the season. He wanted to be paid $20 million per year. Similar to what Darius Leonard is getting paid right now. Darius Leonard, he's paid middle linebacker in football, $20 million per year. Yep. So Roquan wanted similar money, if not even more money. But the funny part is Roquan doesn't have the numbers to back it up. And so, he's sitting here and playing hardball with Ryan Poles, and then, he didn't have an agent, which was a big storyline. He has random people calling on his behalf, and there was a whole saga about that before the season. And then eventually, he held out again. And this is what I said when he held out. This is how you know it's a Roquan Smith problem and not a Ryan Poles problem, because at the beginning of his career, which many people don't remember, he held out on his rookie deal. He held out on the Bears to try and get a high rookie contract. Yeah. He missed all of training camp his rookie year. He didn't even get a start game 1 back in 2018. The Bears put him in later in that game because he didn't know the offense. He wasn't practicing with them. Then, new GM, new situation, holds out again. That's how you know it's a Roquan Smith problem. So I think at the end of the day with Smith, were the Bears going to pay him $20 million after all of these antics? No. Is he worth $20 million per year? No again. So at that point, I think the logical conclusion was trade him, get something back in return draft-wise, and be okay with it, which I was okay with that too. But yeah, both those players, just interesting situations. Allen Robinson just has had an unlucky career when it comes to the teams he's played for. Now he goes to the Rams, and Matthew Stafford's hurt. The Rams are also a train wreck, and it just seems like he can never catch a break. Right. And as far as Roquan goes, hey, I wish him the best. I know he's doing okay out there in Baltimore right now. Right. Hope he can get a contract that suits his needs, but I'm also very happy personally the Bears are not going to be paying it. That's a big win for them.
Now, and I'm glad you cleared that up because I know I forgot all about the contract situation, and of course, that's what separates you from me because you actually you with the team. That's why we need you on this program. But like I will say, I'm glad you cleared that up because I know even though your quarterback's on a rookie contract, you can still build around him. I know it's very difficult later on, but when he has to get the money, but just like you can look in another direction. Like you said before, the receivers talented, but they're just not what he needs right now. And it's underwhelming. Like pieces are underwhelming. Like they just need a reset. When I say reset, they just need a reset philosophically speaking. If they could just get out of the ego, if the ownership gets out of their own way. And what's even more disheartening because the NFC North is not as strong as it's been I know you can't count out Aaron Rodgers. I get all that, but listen, they're not as strong as they used to be. And a lot of people are going to talk about the lack of weapons. Listen, it's Green Bay, historical iconic franchise. Listen,
Yep.
You can't. But I know Minnesota's been really well this year. Detroit's been Detroit. So like, I'm even more disheartened for the Bears and for you especially, just because like the division's not as deep as it's been, but you're still seeing the same situation, and it's terrible.
The division is certainly wide open, and I think that's what makes next year exciting because the Bears going to have 120 plus million in cap space. They're going to have they're going to have the number 2 overall pick if things hold out as they are right now. So the good thing is next year there's some hope. The bad thing is this year the division's wide open. I mean, the Vikings should not be this good, and that's not a knock on what they're doing, but when you're beating up against a horrible Green Bay team, a Lions team that is not that good, and a Bears team that's rebuilding and one of the worst teams in football, of course you're going to have a great record. And when you face all those teams twice each, those are essentially 5 or 6 free wins
yes.
on top of the schedule that you already have.
Right.
And that's the problem there. I mean, yeah, the Bears need to learn. They need to learn a new culture. They need to learn how to win again. And I think that's why they brought in Eberflus and Poles. The whole nagging pace experiment just didn't work.
Right.
And I think players had had enough. I think they did lose the locker room to an extent, and nobody understood what the objective was, how to win football games. They have loaded contracts. The Bears are paying right now this season $90 million in dead cap space. They're paying out $90 million this season to people who aren't even playing on their team. And that's the contract that Ryan Pace gave out. That's not a Ryan Poles issue. It's, all this money that Ryan Pace paid out that now is going to waste. And all these players that Pace bet on that are now, in some cases out of the league or on other teams or who just simply aren't performing anymore, performing as they were when the Bears signed him. So it's a whole culture shift. It's a whole new situation. It's going to take time.
Yes.
The positive is that, you bring in Eberflus and Poles, you bring in a new culture. This Bears team just needs to learn, really, the 2 things, how to execute and how to win. Right now they're in games, but they're not winning games because they can't close because this isn't the final product and they're a young team. They're trying to learn how to close out games.
Right.
And they need to execute. At times they're having too many penalties, or hey, it's a 3rd and goal, they got to score this touchdown, and they haven't done it. That's been quick. Justin Fields, a quarterback, he also is a little bit guilty when it comes to that. He's gotten better recently. So, those are the 2 things they got to work on. They have time to work on it. I think next year with more resources, more money, better draft capital, better draft picks, and just a better team, it should be much better. And it should be more exciting for Bears fans next year. But I'm in agreement with you, Will, because this division this year is pretty darn weak. And unfortunately, the Bears are in the situation where they can't do anything about it. They're going to have to suck it up and wait till next year.
Yeah, like Top Shot was, as you were talking, he was saying like it's imperative to build around Fields. Like you got to build the squad. It's like football's the ultimate team sport. I know it's a broken record saying that, but listen, so many factors go into a team being successful in football. Basketball is different. I mean, it's a team sport still, but it's like. It's a 2-way sport, so the players have more control of the outcome of games. Same thing with baseball to an extent, but just with football, there's so many factors. So, Top Shot was saying that. Now, I want to get your take on this real quick. I know Kool-Aid said he brought up Lamar Jackson has a lack of weapons as well, and I know people. He said like he hears people make excuses about stuff like that. Now, that's interesting, and I want to address that real quick and get your take also. But just like now, Lamar has a lack of weapons. Like Chicago historically, Baltimore hasn't done well historically with wide receivers as well. But a couple things that separates Baltimore from Chicago. Baltimore, they at least hit on veteran wide receivers who play well late. So like your Derek Masons, Anquan Bolden in their Super Bowl run, Steve Smith later on. So
Mike Wallace.
Exactly. So just they're not strong historically at wide receiver, but they've hit on the wide receivers, the late veterans. Now, another thing is when you look at, they had a great run. I think they're more steady within the last 20 years with John Harbaugh, just the front off Ozzie Newsome. They're more steady, especially you can rely on them to get high-end tight ends. They have a great tight end history, with Todd Heap, of course, Shannon Sharp, Mark Andrews, Dennis Pitta, who was great for their Super Bowl run as well. So, but Chicago hasn't done that. So I know Kool-Aid was saying about Lamar, but. And besides, I don't know if we realize Lamar's MVP. So, like, he's a more polished player than Justin Fields. So, like I said, not making excuses. And I'm sure he wasn't talking about that, but Lamar's he's more established right now. Granted, he has a better infrastructure franchise-wise, but, it's just I get what he's saying, but, I mean, you got to give Fields some time.
You hit the nail on the head, too, too, Will. I mean, Lamar is an MVP, and as much as I love Justin Fields, he is nowhere close to being that yet. He could be in a couple of years.
Oh, yeah, without question.
There are no excuses for somebody who's won the most valuable player award in his second year in the league to then say, oh, he has no weapons, or oh, things aren't going well. You know what? He's an MVP. So that negates any argument on that front. Harbaugh's a great coach. He's been there for so many years. So they have steady leadership, which is super important. The Bears are going through head coaches almost every other season at this point. I mean, even look back to 2010, it was what? Lovey, Trestman, John Bott, Matt Nagy, and then now Eberflus. The Bears are on their fifth head coach in the past decade, 12 years. That's scary. Harbaugh has been there forever. So you've got some good leadership there, good GM, good front office. And by the way, the Ravens' defense has always been good.
Right.
So you combine that with an electric quarterback, and he can overcome wide receiver deficiencies. And as you said, great tight ends. He's always a good tight end. And running back. Lamar might be a running back himself, too, right? He runs the ball a lot. But, hey, you know what? They've had good running backs over the years. Veteran guys they pick up on one-year deals who perform, or even guys on their practice squad who just next man up, they come in and they succeed. Gus Edwards, a guy just stepping on up. He had a couple of good games and even a good year here and there. J.K. Dobbins, he's coming back now from injury. Mark Ingram there for a year, too. They've had good running backs, quality household names. The Bears haven't always. They've had to, develop guys. Like Jordan Howard was a good running back, but it took time to develop him. David Montgomery right now. The Bears have had the more developed running back. The Ravens just had them, and they've just kind of come up and done well. And then combined with their good leadership, with their strong defense, with their winning culture and mentality, and with Lamar being an MVP, I think there are just a lot of differences between his situation and what Justin Fields and the Bears are dealing with right now.
1,000% agree. I know Kool-Aid was saying, as a Ravens, he watches the Ravens just they have a highest drop rate for receivers. Like I said, we're both not saying that Lamar has a perfect situation. We're not saying they're the Chiefs, but we understand where you're coming from because it could be better. But I know then again you could be way worse. He's a beast. He should be paid immediately. But I mean that's a whole nother story for another day. I'm gonna get you. Hey, Kool-Aid, I'm gonna get you on the show for sure. I'm gonna send you a message. So I wanted to talk real quick about. There's one more question on the Bears, real quick, about Justin Fields. Do you think he can break that reputation of Ohio State quarterbacks? Because I've seen some great like Torrey Smith and Cordell Jones, Dwayne Haskins. It just hasn't worked in the NFL. Do you think he can break that mold? I think he can personally, but
I think he already has. That might be a bold take, but you know what? I've never seen an Ohio State quarterback, even as of late, with this much success. We're only talking about 2 years for Fields, but you look back at all these guys. Dwayne Haskins, performance-wise, never did well. Never did well in the NFL. We can look back. J.T. Barrett, he barely made it to a practice squad. Cardale Jones, he was in the XFL at some point. Troy Smith, Heisman winner, turned out to be a big bust. And when you're battling with Alex Smith in San Francisco for a starting quarterback job, I think you're kind of a bust. I think you're not that good of a QB.
Yeah.
Justin has already, just by throwing for 13 touchdowns, 8 picks, and rushing for 800-plus yards, I don't know the stats. I don't have them in front of me, but that has to be more than a lot of Ohio State quarterbacks in the past 30 years in the NFL in general. We're talking about 2 years of football for him. Really a couple of games if you look at this season only. I think he's already broken the mold. He could retire today, and I could say, with certainty, he's not a bust. Like if he got hurt and he couldn't play anymore, I wouldn't say he's a bust. I'd say he got hurt, but he was already better than a lot of the other Ohio State quarterbacks who came up in the past 20 to 30 years. So I think he's already broken that mold, and the more he plays and the more he just produces and does what he's been doing, I think that conversation is going to be put to rest.
And I will say, I forgot to mention Terrell Pryor. I think you may have said his name, Terrell Pryor. Now, to his credit, he at least carved out a career at multiple positions, but it wasn't the star level potential that a lot of these guys had in common. Top Shotter, he's a big Buckeyes fan. He just said, Justin Fields has the best potential to be a legend in the NFL. It always comes down to the situation. If the Bears get out of their own way historically, he's going to be just fine because he has it. I'm a huge fan. I'm all in on Justin Fields. They got to protect him. It's just that simple. Now, I'm not in the front office rooms. I'm not Bill Polian, but it's just. Because it takes time. It does take time, but because like you say, he has a solid IQ. Just build the squad around him, and it's point blank. I want to transition to the baseball field. So, Cubs and White Sox. Who do you love more personally?
So I grew up a Cubs fan.
Okay.
right now I'm kind of neutral, but now that I've been doing this for such a long time, I just like to follow each team, analytically down the middle. And if they do something great, I'll praise it. If they do something crappy, I'll torch them for it, kind of goes both ways. But I renounced my Cubs fandom when they won the World Series. I felt nothing. That's kind of scary. I felt nothing. I was like, what?
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, that's crazy. Okay.
A lot of these guys aren't likable to me. Like, I didn't like a lot of their players.
Gotcha.
I was a huge 2008, 2007 Cubs guy, but obviously they didn't go anywhere. And now, ever since that day, it's, what? I'm right down the middle. Let's just look at these two teams analytically.
Yeah, I got you. Like, I know, how is the crosstown rivalry like? Like, how hospitable is it, or how hostile is it? Like, being in that area, how is it specifically?
It used to be way worse. So I grew up on the south side of Chicagoland, and everybody there is a Sox fan. I remember I was in kindergarten. White Sox won the World Series, and they said, "Everybody wear your White Sox stuff." The next day, I came in a Cubs jersey, and I was 5 years old.
Be the difference. I love it.
Yeah. So at that time, it was a little bit more tense, but everybody hopped on the Cubs bandwagon when they won in 2016. There were kids who I knew were loyal White Sox fans who totally turned around. They're like, "What are you talking about? I wasn't a White Sox fan." I'm like, "I remember you wearing a jersey, coming to school wearing jerseys, or coming to school, waving flags for the White Sox." So it used to be a big deal. Today, not really. And, with the demise of baseball in general, and I'm a huge baseball guy, but the game has certainly been losing viewers the past couple of years. A lot more people here just care about the Bears. They care about football more, and Justin Fields even more than baseball, which sucks because I'm a huge baseball guy, and that was my first love when it comes to sports. But not a lot of people care too much anymore. It used to be much bigger.
Yeah. And I will say, like, one point in sports history, like, I wish I was old enough to understand the magnitude of it, was the home run chase in 1998. I was like 4 years old during that season, going on 5. Like, when you get older, you understand the magnitude. And I know, like, it's polarizing for obvious reasons, but like, just when you do the research, like, I would go on YouTube and look at Sammy Sosa. Like, he would pop up like a couple home runs in the same game. I would see fans running on the streets of Chicago to get to the ball. That was a special time, despite, obviously, that's a whole nother story, just what took place. But just I couldn't only imagine being a part of that season with him and Ken Griffey. I know he fell off later in the season with the track. And, of course, Mark McGwire. It's just that was such a beautiful time in the sport. And, I know Top Shot just said, like, more advertising needs to happen. That's a key element. I think the game needs to be faster because, like, football is technically slower than baseball as far as time in the past, but they have more action. A lot of people like some in-depth fans like the pitcher's duel, but when you look at this generation now, just like everything is so fast, microwave access, they need to make adjustments. Because it's a beautiful sport, and it catches up. It's more excitement in the postseason, but it's a long season. I say a few things and I want to get you. I know you're a huge fan, so I know you're more informed than me. But just I look at, have a pitch clock. You have shorten the season. I know it's 162. I would say 100 to 120 is good, just as an experiment. Just shorten it so that way the games could be more consequential. Like and Kool-Aid just says, "But 200 plus games, absolutely." That's the problem. You got spring training, 162 regular season, not to mention the playoffs. So that's a long season. Now, granted, it's not as physically demanding and grueling as football, but that's a long season nonetheless, especially when you consider you have the double headers and stuff like that. And I will also say change the times of some of the games. Right? Just like I see so many games at like 11 and 12. Like now I'm gonna say this. I'm a Yankees fan. If I were living in the Bronx, I would love to go at an 11 o'clock game because the baseball is chill. Like it's a peaceful environment. I would love to just, go and watch it, but I'm just one person. A lot of people are not available to watch a game in the middle of the day. Now, the only exception would be a weekend or a national holiday, but have all your games at night. But tell me what you think about that. I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so, I'm in general a baseball purist, right? So I like the way the game was 50 years ago. Like, I was not for an all-league DH. I'm not for, these ghost runners and extra innings or a pitch clock. But I'll tell you, maybe it's been the past year, I've really started to realize changes do need to be made. As much as I love the game the way it was and the way it should be, they're not honoring it, right? They're making all these deals with all these different streaming services. It makes it practically impossible to watch a freaking game. Oh, is it on Apple TV tonight? Is it on Peacock
brother.
today?
Oh,
and
yes.
Who the hell is going to be paying $80 in streaming to watch their team play once on Apple TV on a Friday night? That's already a problem in and of itself.
Yeah.
So if they're not going to honor that part of the game, then at that point, you might as well let everything go, right? You might as well put in a pitch clock, put in these other things, because obviously you need to reach more people.
Yes,
and even with all these streaming services, all these different deals that they're cutting, that they're trying to do, and all this money that they're bringing in, no one's still watching. Yeah. Nobody cares as much as they do with football. So something needs to change. Whether that's going to be a pitch clock, whether it's, a shorter season, which, would suck for record book purposes.
Sure, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah,
the value in it.
Yeah.
I get the value.
Yeah.
But you know what? If you played only from, June to October versus April, or even in some cases March, regular season starts March 28th.
Yeah.
Who's watching a game on March 28th when the NBA is still in full swing, and hockey, some people still watch hockey, that's in full swing too. So there are definite solutions to it. The purist in me and my heart says no, but logically, yes, something needs to change, and things need to continue to change, because this game, let's be honest, a lot of their fans right now, a lot of baseball fans are 50-year-old men.
Yes.
And that's just a fact. And
demographic, yeah, that's it.
Me and you are younger, right? And we love the game, and MLB should be lucky that we like the game, because usually we shouldn't be.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
So they need to make changes. And, as much as I don't want to see it happen, if it does, hopefully it'll benefit the game, and the reach will get bigger as things move forward.
Yeah, I will say I know you say you're a baseball purist. I know, I don't consider you to be way worse than, a lot of these other guys shot at the clouds. Now, I'm an old soul. I consider myself an old soul, but it's I get the value because, Tom said, make MLB cards popular again. Hey, the league has to be popular again.
Yeah.
Listen, the player that I always think about is Mike Trout. If many people were to walk on the street, if he were to walk on the street right now, many people wouldn't recognize him. That's a problem. And he's one of your premier stars in this last decade. The Los Angeles Angels, Shohei Ohtani, they might recognize because he's foreign, but still, right. Just two biggest stars. Now, granted, the franchise is poor right now, but it would help if they were more popular with the league. And they have the historic advantage, and you have the summer advantage because football's out of session right now. Basketball starts to be out of session maybe mid-June. Same thing with NHL. So you have the summer. July is the All-Star game. You have, and of course you play on the 4th of July. So you have to take advantage of the summertime. That is your peak moment. So like you said, you have made such an excellent point about the record, the record adjustments is how it would affect records. It's just, and I had to stop for a moment because you're absolutely right. But if they're that serious about changing, if you're that serious about pulling more people in, you have to make the adjustment.
And let's be honest here too. And I want to give the benefit of the doubt to some of these players, but who really is going to break Hank Aaron or Barry Bonds' home run record?
No.
Look at the game today. Nobody's playing for 20 years anymore. A lot of these guys are playing for 10 years. They have 5-year peaks. Then they're out of the game. And it's just different than how it was before. Who's going to get 3,000 hits next? I don't know. Who's going to get 300 wins? Besides Justin Verlander might be the last 300-win pitcher we ever see. Ever. Period. And even he's only 50, he's 50 wins away, right?
Yeah.
So all these records that we talk about, that we hold in such high regard, the game is changing to a point where it's so commercialized. Everybody's just looking for that one big contract, and they're done. A lot of these players are only playing 10 or 12 years, so all these records that we like to talk about, that we're worried about, may not even be broken anyway. And when we get to that point, when everybody realizes that we won't see another 300-game winner, we won't see another 3,000-hit player, we won't see another 700 home run player besides, Albert Pujols as of late.
Yeah.
I think people are going to start realizing maybe we should move the season. Maybe we should do this and that. They're going to tinker with it more and more, I think, over the next 10 to 15 years when everybody comes to the realization that, wow, players aren't playing long anymore, and all these records that we love aren't going to be broken. We need to make more money. We need to make more interest in America. We might have to make serious changes to the game for the benefit of it moving forward.
Right. And I will say it's not at the stage of soccer here, but it's because they have the historic advantage. But you have to, like you said, Kool-Aid said, they get paid a lot and they don't care. Listen, if I have a child, if I had a son, And if it was my choice in what sport he should play, I would say baseball in a heartbeat.
Oh,
And then my favorite sport is football and basketball. Have had many family members and friends play those sports. But if I had a son, if I had to pick for him, it would be baseball. Because you don't have you get paid, no salary cap, get all the money you can. It's a life altering wealth. And you can't be an athlete for 50, 60 years. I could talk for 50 plus years. You can't be an athlete for 10. You see what I'm saying? Baseball getting paid, yeah. So I applaud the MLB for not having a salary cap, and then you don't have to worry about the injury woes as much. You can still get injured in baseball, obviously, but listen. I mean, regardless if Aaron Judge gets $700 million this year, listen, will the baseball world be watching outside the baseball world? Will you get fans in the seats? I'm tired of seeing games at 11 o'clock in the morning. When I was because nobody's there.
No,
I don't care. I don't care if you're on a 40-game winning streak. Many fans aren't there. They at work. Like I said, the only exception if it's a weekend or if it's a national holiday. That's the only exception.
Right, and I would rather wake up for a football game and a Bears game than a Cubs or White Sox game. I would rather wake up early in the morning and watch the Bears play in London at 9 a.m. or even play at 11 a.m. depending on where you live, like on the West Coast, than wake up at 11 or 10 a.m. to watch the Cubs play some, crap-ass game against the Reds on a random day that means nothing. So I'm fully with you on that, too. Well,
and I will say, it's just because, and it's disheartening. It's a very, I'm a broken record, passionate sport, it's historically iconic, but it's, like I said, it could be worse, it could be soccer, but I mean, soccer is not prioritized here. Baseball historically is, and they just, to me, it just doesn't. I'm not in the offices and stuff like that, but it just doesn't seem they're doing enough. And because they deserve, the players deserve better, just more, more popular. They should be more popular. You say how much do they get paid in baseball? A lot. Kool-Aid just said a lot. I mean, I love it. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. You still got to play. You still got to perform. 200 plus million.
I think the thing with baseball, which is so interesting to me, is these players are making more money than any other sport. That's a fact. It's all of it's guaranteed. You could get hurt tomorrow and make every penny that you sign.
I love it, yeah.
Baseball's done a good job at taking care of their players as of late, but the problem is they haven't taken care of their audience. Like the NFL, yes, there's more money in the NFL, players making more. They're actually giving out some fully guaranteed contracts, which I never thought that would ever happen in football. And it's happening, and that's great. But they do a good job at still reaching fans and growing their audience. Even basketball. I'm not a big basketball guy anymore. I don't like super teams. I don't like, I grew up watching, 2000 Bulls, 2000 basketball. That was fun, where every team filled a superstar. It was like the 90s, but a little bit more watered down. I think it's worse now. They still make good money, but they still advertise to a certain population. A lot of the youth like basketball, and it's growing. But, baseball, they pay more to their players. They take care of their players more. But it just seems like they don't do a good enough job advertising. I think that's going to be their biggest problem and their biggest hurdle that they're going to have to overcome moving forward, too.
Yeah, I will say one thing I forgot about baseball is just, one of the beautiful things about the sport is, the farming systems. AA, triple, so you could come out of high school, but, if you're not, you could go into a system, into a franchise, like an underbase franchise, and build your stats up there. So that's why the Yankees were so great, because you had Alex Rodriguez and Derek Jeter was in the farming systems. So you built the continuity, you built the skill there. So that's another they should be taking advantage of these things that they have historically over other sports. Now, I mean, football has had other sub leagues and stuff like that, but just baseball takes it to another level with the farming systems. And I love that. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, they could, and they could easily monetize that better. And, a lot of these farm teams, there's no money, right? Nobody wants to put in money to it. You could have a minor league baseball network, literally, and talk about, the 200 minor league teams that stream games all the time. And you know what? You could have, hey, the Iowa Cubs are playing tonight. AAA Iowa. Want to see the next big Cubs superstar? Watch the game tonight. There's so many opportunities for them to advertise and to make more money even off of that. But unfortunately, I just don't think they're doing it right. It's kind of a broken model on that front. And they could certainly do better. I mean, even the NBA G League, people watch G League basketball. They really do. Yeah. I don't, but I know a lot of people who do. Yeah,
and Kool-Aid, as you said that, Kool-Aid just said the D League in basketball. Listen, and I'll tell you why, because a lot of these players that are in the D League, they were stars in college. You know what? You want to know how they were stars in college? Because they were advertised.
Exactly.
And it's a full circle thing.
I don't know, like even, well, I'm trying to think of like the most recent guy or just somebody who comes to my mind, like Jimmer Fredette. We all remember Jimmer. Remember him for BYU?
Oh, yeah.
I know, he's a walking meme, but I'll tell you what, he played a couple of years in the G League, and a lot of people watched. Or, when some of the Ball brothers went to the G League, LeAngelo, everybody's watching. Like, there are certain recognizable names who still play G League basketball today, and that would cause me to tune in for 5 minutes and see how they're doing.
Yes.
They do a good job at that, advertising-wise. In baseball, though, not as much in the minors, and I think that's going to be, again, it's a problem for them, and hopefully they can fix it for the sake of the future generation, because when you and I have kids, Will, I don't know how popular baseball is going to be. Right? We're younger. I don't know what's going to happen.
I don't like where it's going. I don't like where the sport's going. It just, like I said, I just feel like they're not doing it right. It reminds me of the WNBA. I know I've seen so many videos about the women should be paid more, but they just don't. It's the same situation. They just don't have the popularity. They just don't have the funding. So you have to advertise it better. Maybe in the WNBA lower the rim a little bit, because these women the ladies are very, very skilled. They are extremely skilled. People don't get to see it. So but you have a marketing issue, and you have to advertise it.
Yeah, the weird part about the WNBA is, you got a lot of these teams who are owned by NBA owners, so they own, multi-franchises. It's like, well, I get maybe not as many people watch, or, you can make the argument here back and forth, but at the end of the day, they should be advertised better, and maybe more people would watch. I mean, I don't watch a ton of the WNBA, but I know a lot of people who do, and they enjoy it. It's like a niche sport, kind of like soccer in America. Yeah. There is a loyal fan base, and if you could crack into it a little bit more, expand the reach a little bit more, I think more people will watch, and it could become more popular as time moves forward.
Yeah. One thing I had an idea about the WNBA, just I know they're not popular right now. Just maybe have like a mountain range team, like in the Dakota or something. And I know it's not a big. I know it's not Chicago. I know it's not Philly. I know it's not Houston. I get all that, but just but they're like a lot of these states are. I'm sure they're starving for a pro team to get behind, because they might not be. They might not be huge on the college, high school scene, but they're starving for a pro team. So you could do like a mountain range circuit. So the team could be like North Dakota, but they can go into South Dakota, go into Idaho and play. Just like it's just an experiment. I mean, what do you have to lose? I mean,
right. Well, that's exactly what came into my head. What do you have to lose in trying to do something like that? Or, creating, they can do so many different things because they're a smaller league. They can get away with more things.
Exactly.
More fun. Like, hey, let's do a, all-team tournament for the playoffs. Nobody makes the playoffs. It's just a tournament. You're in, you're out. Like, I know the NBA was thinking about that. I mean, there are things that you could do with the WNBA to test, to then implement with them moving forward, and then with the NBA, too, even. Maybe some of those concepts make it to the NBA. I think it's a great opportunity to test, but also a great opportunity to increase their audience. And I'd like to be, I'd like to see the NBA, and I'd like to see the owners of that league and the owners of those teams think about doing something different as the league continues to grow. That'd be nice.
Right. Just and it's funny about this about the baseball. Just I wanted to ask you about the current stuff first, but I know we had got on this beautiful conversation. But just real quick, I wanted to ask you about the current status for both teams. I know the Cubs just signed. The White Sox. They just Jose Abreu is going to the Astros. That's a tough. I know he's 35, but I mean he's very productive. When I saw that, I was like, I'm so sick of the Astros as a Yankees fan. I hate the Astros. Being from Louisiana, that's just the closest team proximity-wise, geographically. Everybody flocks to the Astros, but I'm sick of the Astros, and I hate that they got Abreu. So what are your quick thoughts on that?
Yeah. So as far as the Abreu thing goes, everybody kind of knew the Sox weren't going to re-sign Abreu. Yeah. He's an older guy. I will say, I think they should have tried better to get a deal done. I mean, I know you don't want to pay him. I know he's older. Yeah, sure, his performance is going to regress over the next couple of years. But last year, still had about 300. I mean, he was, I think, maybe 10th or 11th in the American League in batting average. That's amazing for a guy who's 36 years old. And I would have liked to see him retire as a White Sox and be considered one of the greatest White Sox of all time. Unfortunately, they didn't do it. Got a bigger offer, and I think he's going to do great in Houston with the short porch and left and right field. He's going to probably hit like 35 home runs this year, and that's good for him. The White Sox did just sign Mike Clevinger to a one-year deal. He played for the Padres last year. Clevinger was very good from 2017 to 2020. Then he got Tommy John surgery last year, had about a 4.33 ERA, I want to say. Very league average pitcher, but he was elite. So the White Sox are hoping they can tap into that talent. As of right now, the Cubs are supposedly tied to. They're going to be tied to Dansby Swanson from the Atlanta Braves. The Cubs are tied to him. Nothing definite there yet. It's interesting. The White Sox have to make a lot of changes. They hired a new manager. They hired him away from the Kansas City Royals. He was their bench coach, first time ever manager. So Tony La Russa is no longer with the team. Right. The White Sox underwhelmed last year. The expectation for this season should still be a playoff appearance because they have a lot of good players on team-friendly contracts. So we're going to have to see what happens to them. As for the Cubs, last year, rebuilding year, I would not be surprised if the Cubs could be a 500 to above 500 team and contend for a wild card spot. I don't see why they shouldn't. A lot of young, good pitching, a lot of young guys. They're trying to get their foot back into the playoff pool, into the competitive baseball pool. Right. They are willing to spend money. They haven't made that secret at all. So I think that if they could sign a couple of good guys, maybe a good arm, they're tied to Swanson. That'd be a nice bat in the lineup. They could get another power bat, maybe a first baseman too. Yes, help out there. They have this guy in the AAA named Matt Mervis, who they may call up this season. He had 35 home runs and over 110 RBIs. Hit 305 last year in AAA. He is very good, and there's a lot of thought there that the Cubs may bring him up this season. So things are looking up for both teams. The White Sox more so because they're in the right situation. But the Cubs could very well be a wild card team this year. So, we're going to have to see what happens during free agency and during spring training. But there should be more optimism compared to last year. For the Cubs in particular, for the White Sox, I think there's some pressure. They really got to turn things around after how bad last year went.
Gotcha. Yeah, like I said, and I'm glad you said that about the Cubs. I know the Cubs missed the playoff for the third time in 4 seasons. I know, baseball is always tricky to me because you could have a winning record over 500, but it's just historically with the tight playoff window is tight. I know I'm glad you just broke those down. Even going back to Abreu real quick, he had 183 hits. The most of his career since 2017 when he had 189. He led the AL in total bases in 2017 also with 343, and he led the majors in 2020. Granted, it was a COVID year, but like I said, very productive. Who do you bet on to have a better? Who would you say will be better in the next 5 years or so, Cubs or the White Sox?
Oh boy, I think the Cubs, and that's not even a biased answer. And here's why. I don't know what the White Sox are. The White Sox were supposed to be a potential World Series team this year. And they just totally flopped. There are 4 guys who they bet on, like Eloy Jimenez and Luis Robert, Tim Anderson. Due to injuries and poor performance, they weren't really in the picture. Their starting rotation suffered a couple of setbacks injury-wise. I don't know what to expect from them over the next 5 years. I don't know what they are. They could easily prove me wrong and win 97 games next year. I don't see it right now. The Cubs, at least, and I'm not a big fan of what they've been doing recently, but the Cubs do have a path in regards to starting pitching. They have 5 or 6 young arms, and if they spend money on a veteran piece, they'll be right back in the thick of it in the rotation. They have some young pieces as well in the infield, like Nico Horner had a pretty good year. Ian Happ had a career season. That there are guys that they could build around offensively, and then with the guys who are going to be in the minors like Matt Mervis and other guys who could be called up very soon. So I would give the Cubs a more favorable outlook over the next 5 years. Next year, the White Sox will probably outperform them simply because they are spending more money and they're supposed to be out of a rebuild. But if their core does not perform like they did last year, the White Sox have to do another rebuild yet again after just completing one. So they're in bigger trouble, and they're facing much more pressure than the Cubs are moving forward.
Yeah, I know we're running close on our time. I just want to ask you about the Bulls real quick. Just general question. Just how many Jordan stories do you hear on a daily basis?
Jordan stories, yeah, little bit. I have a couple. I know the Last Dance was going on during COVID. Weren't really many sports going on, so got a couple of guests on who covered Jordan during that time. One of my guests, his name was Marci and Greco. He used to be a sports anchor here at ABC7 in Chicago. He was actually featured in The Last Dance a couple of times. Asking questions and films. So we talked extensively about that whole situation and how crazy it was to cover that team. A couple of other people I had on too who were not in the film, but who covered Jordan at that time and later in his career.
Right.
Yeah, we hear about it a lot. The whole MJ versus LeBron debate. I mean, you hear that at least once a week in this town, whether it be people passing each other in the street or on YouTube somewhere. It's a big thing over here. And Michael Jordan, great player. I think the greatest basketball player of all time. I don't think that's where I stand on it right now. And maybe it's a Chicago bias, but that's how I feel about it at the moment. Great player. And those Bulls teams in the 90s, I mean, really one of the greatest dynasties ever in NBA history. You could put them up with some of those Celtics teams in the 50s, Lakers teams in the 50s and 60s, and, 70s, even 80s, too. Lakers have had a storied history, but I think the Bulls could certainly contend with those two dynasties that everybody loves to talk about. The Bulls should be up there, too, with them.
Yeah, two three-peats in the one decade is unparalleled going back to the 60s Celtics. Obviously, my Lakers three-peated early in the 2000s, but just to do it in two separate occasions within one decade is just uncanny for the modern era. Just like you said, I'm with you on MJ being the GOAT. I have LeBron too right now. Just I think for what those guys have been asked to do throughout their careers, MJ, even though he had Hall of Fame help, just Scotty and Phil, just like that. Likewise with LeBron, with D-Wade, Chris Bosh, just had great help. Just what they've been asked to do from start to finish in their careers, I think is just unparalleled. But I think, like I said, I'm with you with MJ. I know we have some other stuff, but I'm gonna shut it down right here, brother. Thank you so much for your time. Like, I can't thank you enough. You, like I said, you're one of my favorite YouTubers right now. My go-to guy for Chicago sports. Always shoot it to us straight, guys. John is on all the platforms. You can find him on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at John Z Sports. That's JON, the letter Z, Sports, all one word. No special characters, no special spelling, just all one word. You can message me if you need the handle and stuff like that. On YouTube, it's Sports Talk Chicago, just 3 words, no special spelling. You're going to get unfiltered, true opinions. Like, not no fluff stuff that you see on Twitter, on Instagram, not to make you feel good and stuff like that. But he's going to give it to you straight. And he's not one of those rah-rah people that just yelling just to be heard. Just he's gonna give it to you straight. Brother, I thank you so much for your time, and we can't wait to do it again, brother.
Yeah, Will, loved it. Again, honored to be asked to come on. I know you got a huge following yourself. You do some great work, so I'm appreciative of your time as well. And looking forward to staying in touch. Anytime you need me, let's do it again. Had a great time. And, looking forward to staying in touch and keeping it going, man.
Yes, sir. You have a blessed night. You guys have a blessed night. Take it easy. God bless you.